Hello, this is Miss Pat from Summers Public Library. This week in Science Scouts, we're going to learn about fingerprints because we all have them and they're all different. Our story this week is called Chapter 2 is Missing by Josh Lieb. I'm going to do something a little different this week with the story. Wait, I don't want to alarm you, but Chapter 2 is missing. It was definitely here yesterday, and it can't have walked off on its own, so that can only mean someone stole it. Whoever took Chapter 2 didn't leave a ransom note. I would pay any price to get Chapter 2 back, obviously, because without Chapter 2, the book's not complete. If you happen to see Chapter 2, or if you notice any suspicious characters lurking around this book, please call the police and ask for Detective McGarrigan. She's the police officer in charge of the investigation, or you can email her or tweet her. Now, maybe you don't believe me about Chapter 2 being missing. Well, turn the page and take a look for yourself. And furthermore, continued Milo the janitor, I think you owe me an apology. Milo, I said, I don't have time for apologies. Can't you see Chapter 2 is missing? Milo shrugged. That doesn't make any difference to me. I'm just the janitor here after all. Then get back to work while I deal with this crisis, I said. But first, please return the period that should be at the end of this sentence. I didn't think you wanted that, said Milo. And I thought it would look better at the end of this sentence, next to the period that I've already got. Well, it doesn't look better. It looks silly, I said. But don't bother returning it now. I don't want it after you used it. Milo picked up his mop and walked out, grumbling under his breath about how nobody respected a book janitor, even though he was the one who kept the book clean enough to read. Just then, Detective McGarrigan entered. I have good news, she said, with a frown on her face. What? Have you found Chapter 2? No, she said. Well, what's the news? I asked. I don't have any news, she said. I was puzzled. But you ended Chapter 3 telling me you had good news. Now you're telling me you have no news? Yes, said Detective McGarrigan, and everyone knows no news is good news. I couldn't argue with that logic. After all, she is a detective. Has anybody called you and left a tip? Or have you gotten any emails or any tweets? Yes, she said, but I can't tell you what they said. Why not? Because that information is supposed to be in Chapter 5. But this is Chapter 5. Detective McGarrigan looked around. So it is. Boy, these chapters are really whizzing by. Remember when I walked in back in Chapter 3? Don't get sentimental on me, I said. Just tell me what the readers have given you. Maybe one of them's a clue. I don't think so, she said. All I've gotten are messages from a bunch of crazy people telling me I'm very, very stupid and that you're very, very stupid. Well, that's obviously not true, I said. Exactly. So how can I believe anything they say? Then they tell me all kinds of crazy theories. That Chapter 2 is hidden on the inside back cover of this book, and that you have to use a mirror to read it, and that the thief is obviously... Milo, I yelled. Milo came running in, dragging his mop behind him. Now what's wrong? He asked. I pointed up. What's that giant pile of M's doing in the middle of the page? I thought you wanted those there, he said. I think they look rather nice. Well, they don't look nice, I said. They look sloppy. Oh. Do you want me to sweep them all into Chapter 1? Nobody goes there anymore. Don't bother, I said. I never liked Chapter 5 anyway. Am I still here or not? Asked Detective McGarrigan. You're still here, I said. Okay, just checking, because I haven't said anything for a while. And we're going to stop right there. And if you guys want to find out what happens to Chapter 2 and whether or not they find it, you're going to have to take the book out, okay? So remember, Chapter 2 is missing. Now, I do want to go back to Chapter 2's page because that's going to have a lot to do with what we have. So this is Chapter 2. You guys see something down here? And that's not because somebody had dirty hands when they read the book. and they left chocolate fingerprints in here. These are real fingerprints. So we're going to talk about fingerprints and how people, like detectives, use those to find out who did something. Okay, and how would that help? Because we all have fingerprints, right? So do my fingerprints look like yours? So actually they don't. So fingerprints are tiny ridges or patterns on the tip of your finger. Okay, so it's those little black lines that are on there. Now, this one says, "Who am I?" with a question mark. Your fingers don't say that. Okay, but they do have those little lines, and each person has 10 different patterns on their fingers. So this finger doesn't look like this finger, doesn't look like this finger. None of my fingers look the same, and none of my fingers look like yours. Right? So do you have any that look like these? Probably not, but they might have something in common. Okay, so people will actually count how many lines do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to the middle. Now this one has a loop-de-loop in the middle, right smack in the middle, and look at the lines at the bottom. These ones have curly cues, but those curly cues are different than this one. This one looks like it has lots of lines up at the top, and then it just has curly cues in the middle, and this one has a curly cue down here at the bottom of the side. See, each one is different. Now, people who study fingerprints, they've labeled them into 8 different kinds. So they'll say it has a plain arch, which is just lines. But even then, some of them are bigger, some of them are thicker, some of them are longer. This one has an arch. It's kind of like a little tent in the middle. This one has a little loop, bigger loop. This one, the accidental one, seems to be the most popular one that most people have. Kind of has a little bit of everything. It has the straight lines. It has these little curly cues. It has this little circle in the middle. All right, so look at each one of these. Now, I'm not going to ask you to memorize these because I honestly can't memorize them either. But if you ever decide you want to go into detective work, they'll actually look at this. So there are many jobs that require people to be fingerprinted, sometimes for the safety of others. Okay, maybe their job involves top secret information. Well, we want to know that the person's not a criminal, right? So they're going to fingerprint them and make sure they're not a criminal before they give them top secret information. To work with kids, people have to get fingerprinted. Okay, because we don't want any bad guys working around any kids, right? There's also a lot of jobs involved in finding fingerprints, taking them, studying them. And if you look at these ones under the magnifying glass, this one versus this one, they're not the same. Some of you guys might get one that looks like this today. I'll show you how we don't get that one. Okay, they had one of those too. They had a dark one right here. Now, we're also going to talk or work on what kind of things would leave fingerprints. So these guys are dusting for a fingerprint on a paper towel. We're going to do that. We're going to look to see whether or not that's going to work, right? You can try that at home. Looking at these pictures with the little grids, do you think your fingerprints are going to work too well on that? Probably not, right? Because these things are going to kind of interfere with it. Could you leave fingerprints on a book? Do we want to leave fingerprints on a book? No. We like your hands to be clean when you're turning the pages, right? We don't want those chocolate fingerprints on the book. This person had some fingerprints. Nice smooth glass, just like the nice smooth pages of the book. Nice smooth glass. And then somebody dusted for those fingerprints so we could find them. What about an orange? Kind of like our paper towel. Look at the designs on here. It's going to be a little hard to find the fingerprint on there, isn't it? But now if you had a banana or an apple, that would be easier. Right? And I don't mean a chewed up apple, because obviously that's just going to leave you teeth marks. But if you just had an apple, somebody caught an apple, they could dust the fingerprints for that, because that's nice and smooth. It has to be nice and smooth. So, yeah. There are no kits for this week because most of this stuff you guys probably have at home. Okay. You can get a piece of white paper. Now, not everybody has an ink pad, so I'm going to show you how to do this with a pencil too. Okay, but if you have an ink pad, okay, you're going to roll your finger this way. Don't just push down. Roll your finger, okay? And then you're going to roll it again to leave your fingerprint. And you can see I got these giant white lines going across mine. Plus I got a lot of these little black ones. Now, if you don't have an ink pad, okay, and I can take this now and go back a couple things and look to see what kind of designs do I have. And it kind of looks like I have a lot of those lines and I don't see any loop-de-loops or curls, but I can go back and find out what kind. Now, if you have a pencil, just kind of scribble a whole lot in one spot. Even though it looks like I don't have any white lines left here, still going to kind of scribble in one spot. Okay, and I'm going to try and do the same thing with my finger. I'm going to go like that, right? Rolling back and forth. And then I'm going to go like that. Mine didn't work out so well. So let's okay, and I'm pushing down. Now, don't do this on mommy's rug or mommy's white shirt. It's not showing out so much. Might be my pencil is not quite so sharp. Can't do this with crayon. Okay, the best one will be, because I can still do my fingerprint kind of there. Now, I have a black paper here too, and I have that for a reason. So I'm going to try and put my fingerprint on here again with the, now you would think that this isn't going to show up too well, right? Kind of hard to see that. If you have any powder at home or flour, either one, this is kind of what detectives would do, right? They've got a brush, very soft brush. It has to be very soft because we don't want to brush the fingerprint away, right? If we push down too hard on it, it's going to brush it away. And then they'll just kind of go like this. Over it. And we're going to blow. And you're going to see that it's kind of got a smudge mark there. So I know there's a fingerprint there versus if I did it over here. Right? Not as much. Our fingerprint doesn't show up as well. Now they use a special type of powder that holds really well. What you will notice is after you put the powder on though, you can put your fingerprint in there. Okay, and it'll stick. So if you want, if you have flour or powder, you could just kind of cover the black paper up. Don't blow this in people's faces. Okay. Now I've got two fingerprints. So you guys can do a lot of things with fingerprints. Preferably don't leave them in books. Don't leave them on any white counters or white shirts, stuff like that, right? We don't want you going like this, wiping the stuff on your clothes. But some people actually do this and then they make them into art pictures. I don't know if you can actually see those ones, because they're on black. So we're going to try and do that on the white one. Okay, we'll do that on the white one. Okay, we've turned it into a bird. You can do all kinds of things that way. You can do your fingerprints and then compare it to somebody else, like your thumbprint with mom's thumbprint, with dad's thumbprint, with your brother's thumbprint. Just make sure you wipe them off when you're done, okay? Baby wipes or soap and water, not white towels, okay? Just a paper towel isn't going to take it off either. But fingerprints are important and they make people be able to identify you. Even though they didn't see who did it, we didn't see who took chapter 2 for that book, but somebody left fingerprints. And since everybody's fingerprints are different, if that little boy collects all the people's fingerprints, he can figure out whose it is, who did it, okay? Who stole chapter 2. He won't be able to figure out where it is, although you will find it in the book. But he'll be able to figure out who did it because everybody's fingerprint is different. Just like your face. Even twins have different fingerprints. Okay. And by the way, just so you can see, holding the pencil, because remember I did this first, I got fingerprints now all over my pencil because I was touching this. We leave fingerprints everywhere we go. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Remember, anywhere you can leave fingerprints, you can also leave germs. So if you've been coughing in your hand, you're touching stuff. Doorknobs, refrigerator doors, right? Anything that's nice and we can leave fingerprints anywhere. They can't get the fingerprints unless it's nice and smooth, right, and hard. Okay, so plastic wrap might be smooth, tinfoil might be, but it's kind of soft, so it's a little hard to get it, especially saran wrap. So enjoy experimenting. Make sure you clean up your mess though, and I'll see you guys next week.